Hi, this is Chris from the Stephanie Miller Show. Please enjoy this exclusive clip from Political Voices Network.
Aw. Also, I love that I opened my show by talking about all the dead celebrities getting blue check marks. You said they did Anthony Bourdain and Michael Jackson as well. Chadwick Boseman, Norm Macdonald. They apparently paid the subscription checkmark service and supplied their phone number, which is, not to be, sneezed at once you're dead. That's difficult.
That's like when the Mormons baptize dead people.
Yes. Ooh. Yes.
Yeah, I never had a blue check mark, so I don't care. Now it's like a scarlet letter or having leprosy. Celebrities are like, I don't want it. I didn't pay for it. I don't want it.
Brilliant marketing strategy.
Yeah.
John. Well done.
Yeah. It's what do we call the rocket? It's a rapid, unscheduled disassembly. What's happening to Twitter? Okay, so, I wait for you to give me all the good dirt because I could not at first even follow this whole story except that it just all sounded illegal. And who's investigating what? But it sounds like the answer is Fani Willis and Jack Smith are on all of this. Because you explain this better than most people, especially when it gets so complicated. I started with your Twitter feed. Let me just get your play-by-play here. So in January 2021, you started two men escorted into the Coffee County, Georgia elections office by one of the Georgia fraudulent electors where they stole voting data from voting machines at the direction of Sidney Powell. Can I just start with this? How was this allowed to happen in the first place?
It's not, which is why they're under criminal investigation.
Right. Because, I don't know that we knew a lot of these wrinkles. So you say this happened about 20 days after the infamous 12/18/20 Oval Office meeting where Donald was presented with draft executive orders from Mike Flynn, Phil Waldron, and Sidney Powell to seize voting machines. Can you tell us again, who is Phil Waldron?
He's the guy who wrote that PowerPoint, the Coup PowerPoint, remember?
Yes.
About pressuring Pence and then seizing voting machines. And basically what happened is like every sane but still evil but sane lawyer came in and said, look, you can't seize voting machines. He wanted the DOD, the DHS, the U.S. Marshal Service. He tried to get everybody to seize voting machines.
Right.
So in that Oval Office meeting, the one that had the crazy blow up where Hirschman and almost came to blows with a couple of people, they were told by Cuccinelli at the DHS, look, you can't seize voting machines unless there's evidence of foreign interference. We can't seize voting machines. And so they went out and tried to make this happen, right?
Yeah. They
went out and said, Sidney Powell said, Italy satellites, foreign Italian satellites. And then the cyber ninjas were like, bamboo, it's Chinese. There's bamboo in the ballot. Then they said, I think, what was it? Hugo Chavez, the Sidney Powell, Venezuela thing. And then they couldn't get their hands on the voting machines. So Rudy came up with the idea, well, what if we got some voter data from a voting machine by means other than seizing them and use that as a pretext to seize? Once we get the stuff and show that it's corrupt, what if we can use that to seize voting machines? Now,
right, but the act itself of getting voting machine data is illegal, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And this was a woman who's one of the 10 fraudulent electors down in Georgia who escorted these two guys into, it was like Watergate. It was a break-in.
Right.
Escorted them into the registrar's office and got those data from the voting machines. They did it in Antrim County too, and that report was debunked and the lawsuit was thrown out and Sidney Powell was sanctioned. And so that's why Arizona used cyber ninjas instead of this group, because their report, was so widely debunked.
Right, because that's what you said. The stolen data was shared with Doug Logan, CEO of Cyber Ninjas, Sidney Powell, Rudy. So this cast of characters, I'm like reading your Twitter feed, just like, oh my God. So then Phil Waldron, as you told us, was the author of the 1/6 PowerPoint presentation, which included proposals for Pence to reject electors from swing states, delay the electoral count, seize voting machines, and paper ballots using U.S. Marshals and the National Guard. So again, there is so much here. My question was, Fani Willis or Jack Smith, and I think you answered that, Allison, as you tend to do. You cover all of it. You said Fani Willis has this evidence, recently filed a motion to remove the Georgia fraudulent elector's lawyer who's being paid by the Georgia GOP from the case for conflicts of interest. You said Jack Smith is honing in on the 12/18/20 meeting and the voting machines, and even though Fox and Dominion settled, multiple law enforcement agencies are asking Abby Grossman's lawyers for his 90 tapes. So, wow. all of these stories seem to intersect, huh?
Yeah, although I will say we do not have any public reporting that Fani Willis has questioned the burglars. We don't have, we know she has the emails and text messages about it. And we know Jack Smith is asking questions about seizing voting machines and the 12/18 meeting. But as far as we know, there's no public reporting that he's questioned the burglars of these data. And so we actually aren't sure yet who is investigating this, except in Michigan, the lovely women of Michigan, who appointed a special counsel last year to investigate these two people because they tried the same trick in Antrim County.
Right. Okay. So let's just skip down. So Waldron connects the plot to use stolen voter data as a pretext for seizing voting machines to the Pence pressure campaign and the plot to delay the electoral count on 1/6. Waldron shared his 1/6 PowerPoint with Meadows and visited the White House 8 to 10 times. The 12/18/20 meeting included Meadows, Cipollone, Powell, Rudy, Flynn, Patrick Byrne, Derek Lyons, Eric Kirschner, and others. During that meeting, the idea to appoint a special counsel to investigate voter fraud was also floated. I mean, I've always thought that, clearly January 6th is not just about January 6th and about, does free speech cover what he said, or is it an insight to, that was a tiny part of this whole plot, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the Will Be Wild tweet went out an hour after that meeting, after he was told that Pence wouldn't throw the electors out, after he was told that he couldn't seize voting machines, and then he went out and summoned a mob to the Capitol. So what we don't have yet is the direct piece of evidence that says the reason why he summoned the mob to the Capitol was to delay the Electoral Count Act because his other gambits weren't working. We don't have that direct piece of evidence yet. But that would connect all of like the 8 different prongs of the coup attempts together. You know what I mean? It would because right now we kind of see the boots on the ground attack on the Capitol as separate from the fraudulent elector scheme, for example.
Yeah. So where are we on Pence?
Maybe all part of the same thing.
Because I know Pence is always, I'm just going to follow the law, which I don't know what that means to him. But are we going to, what is actually happening with the Pence testimony?
He said in an interview over the weekend or late last week that he had worked out a time to come in and testify, and said that, it's very narrow what they'll be asking me about. And that's based on Jeb Boasberg, the judge's order, which actually isn't very narrow. He has to answer questions about crimes. So, we'll see what happens, but I think it'll probably be by the end of this month, but he didn't give a date. He hasn't said. And that, that's probably for security purposes. We see what happens when people know where Pence will be.
Right. Yes. Right. By the way, speaking of everything being connected, you said, Lindell, pillow guy,
right,
tried this stolen data stunt too when he stole voters' data from Mesa County, Colorado, and used it during his cyber symposium. His phone has been seized, and he just had to pay $5 million to a guy who debunked his data. Yeah, I love that. That was my favorite. Prove me wrong. The guy's like, okay.
And he did. And while the 5 million is a fun piece of that story, I think the real story is that all of his data was debunked. In a contest that he ran.
Yeah.
But he's in a lot of trouble. And we know Tina Peters, the Mesa County, Colorado person who helped steal that voter data, has been prosecuted. So we're just waiting for it to happen down with the Coffee County, Georgia folks as well.
Yeah. Is that now, do you feel like that's going to be delayed because of the whole lawyer thing? Because, of course, they hire crooky lawyers when they're crooks.
Yeah, I think that she wants to part of the whole reason that she wants to get rid of that lawyer is because it seemed like she offered an immunity deal to take their temperature of these fraudulent electors in Georgia. And the court ordered them to go and ask the fraudulent electors if they were interested in an immunity deal. And then they told the court, the lawyer did, yeah, we did. And then as it turns out, they didn't make that offer. And that is one of the biggest no-nos in lawyering is to not present your client with an offer. Oh, sorry. Cat chaos here.
Kitty.
So yeah, we have to kind of wait and see how that plays out because she may be flipping some people.
Yeah.
Already, now, even at this late stage.
Okay. Oh, speaking of your kitten and also my T-shirt that Z grabs back, happy E. Jean Carroll rape trial week. Just you're keeping track of ex-presidential crimes.
For those who celebrate.
This would be rape trial week. For those who celebrate.
He tried everything to get the names and the phone numbers of the potential jurors, the prospective jurors. And the judge was like, I see you.
Yeah.
I see you, taco pants. I'm not giving it to you.
Taco penis. It's taco penis. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm
it's
sorry.
It's like, it'd be a shame if someone was to know who those people were. Just saying.
The
Not being
word
mobby.
pants is just always funny to me, so taco
Okay.
pants
Yeah.
for me.
All right. Well, there's a taco penis in a taco pants. But okay. You know what? Tomato, tomato.
Is that genetic, like hereditary? Where,
Yes.
I can do the taco tongue? Is
Yes.
that the thing? Okay.
I can too. Okay. I love when you do story time on Twitter. You said there is a magical place called Mar-a-Lago where men enter as lawyers and emerge as witnesses.
Republicans say they won't cut Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid. But can honest, hard-working middle-class Americans really believe what these politicians say? Republicans said they wouldn't overturn Roe v. Wade. Here's what Supreme Court Justices Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Coney Barrett said during their Senate confirmation hearings.
Roe v. Wade. It is a precedent of the United States Supreme Court. A good judge will consider it as precedent of the United States Supreme Court.
Roe v. Wade. It's settled as a precedent of the Supreme Court.
Roe is not a super precedent, but that doesn't mean that Roe should be overruled.
Well, we saw how that turned out. They played us for fools. Tell your elected officials to keep their hands off of our Social Security and healthcare benefits.